Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start this lesson off by giving all the praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Rakakudash. Double honors to the apostles and elders at Great Millstone. Honors to our brothers who are fervently pushing the word in sincerity and in faith, and shalom to all the sincere believers. Now, this lesson is going to be primarily based on the division that we see increasing throughout the world amongst the people, and the inevitable violence and wars that are going to take place as a result. So through the Spirit, I'm going to get some precepts, and Lord's will, you're edified. It says, Luke 12:51. Suppose ye that I am come to give peace on earth? I tell you nay, but rather division. And that's exactly what the Heavenly Father is doing. He's dividing the people, whether it's racially or politically, or even both. And we've been seeing that a lot, especially here in America. The division is very clear. You have these Edomites that, still to this day believe that they're superior to everybody else. And they want to get rid of all the brown people in the country so that they can have their all quote unquote white America, which is never going to happen because the Lord is going to destroy this place before it ever gets to that point. But we've been seeing a major increase in, racial attacks by these Edomites against, so-called black people, the so-called Latinos, and even other nations like, so-called Asian people. And that's the work of the Lord. The Lord is putting these Edomites back into that animalistic state that they were once in, that ancient hatred that these Edomites have been holding on to. The Lord is starting to let them show that again, especially towards so-called blacks and Latinos. Matthew 24:12, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. And once again, we see it. We see iniquity or wickedness abounding or increasing in the world. More and more people are out here just doing very wicked, foolish things. People are becoming more and more cold-hearted towards one another. And like I said, politically, racially, even amongst people, amongst people's race, they're, the men and the women are becoming more divided against each other. So the Lord is like really just slicing, that cake, so to speak, into more pieces. You got the men against the women against the men against the children, the women against the children against the men and women, And then you have it on the racial side of things, and you have it on the political side of things. So it's just a lot of division. And a lot of people are becoming more and more distant and more cold-hearted, which makes it easier for them to become violent because they don't care. They're not going to care who they hurt. A lot of people don't fear going to jail either. They don't fear going to jail. They don't fear dying because a lot of people are just so fed up with all the nonsense that's happening. So they're just, they're like, hey, whatever is going to happen is going to happen. And they're okay with that. And that's a very scary thing because, there is that old saying that when people have nothing to lose, they lose it. And especially here in America, this wicked government is just making life more and more difficult for everybody. People are struggling more and more. And there's that old saying, desperate times call for desperate measures, and people are getting very desperate out here. See, those of us of the hopeful elect, we trust that the Heavenly Father is going to provide for us. So we're not worried about it. We're not stressing. But these carnal people who don't have that type of faith, they're going to resort to very violent methods to get whatever they need or to get whatever they want. And that is the direction that this country and in general the world is going in. Like, you look in certain parts of the world and there's full blown riots going on, people full blown fighting the police and things like that in these other countries. So it's gonna be people against the government, people against each other. It's just gonna be all out chaos taking over the world. Exodus 15:3, the Lord Yahweh is a man of war. The Lord Yahweh is his name. That's right, the Heavenly Father is a man of war. That's why very soon there's going to be race wars, civil wars, and ultimately world war. Anybody with eyes to see can tell that that's the direction things are going in, and they're headed in that direction very fast. Like, the world right now is a powder keg, and the pressure is just building and building, and it's about to go off. And there is no stopping it because this is the will of the Heavenly Father. This is what the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, has set into motion. And the only chance anybody would have of escaping this is if the Heavenly Father has chosen you from the foundation of the world to endure unto the end and be saved. Because everybody outside of that, you're going to get caught up in all the chaos that's about to take place. Ecclesiastes 3:1, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. And jumping down to verse 8, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. And we're living in a time of war. Like I said, race wars, civil wars, and ultimately World War III, which is going to be the war to end all wars because it's going to be a nuclear war. And in the end of that war, America is going to cease to exist, be completely wiped out, and even Israel is going to get destroyed. The only difference is that Israel is going to be rebuilt because that is the Lord's chosen land. But America, once America gets destroyed, it's never coming back. And the Lord is going to dismantle all of these other wicked kingdoms. The UK, Canada, basically all these Edomite strongholds, these places where these Edomites, are more in control. The Lord is going to dismantle that because he's going to take these Edomites, these so-called self-proclaimed white people, he's going to take them out of power. And rightfully so, because these Edomites being in power, all they've done is cause chaos, start wars, slaughter millions upon millions upon millions of people. And the Lord is going to have it that the way these Edomites came into power, through war and violence is the same way they're going to be removed from power. The difference is that the way they go out is going to be far worse than the way they came in. And these Edomites, they know that. They can feel it. They're taking a look around and they see that things are no longer going in their direction. That's why they're so angry. That's why they're, becoming more and more violent. Because they see that they're getting removed. And if you go on TikTok in particular, they're talking about how they feel like, brown skinned people are replacing them. How they feel like they're getting replaced. And they don't like that because for the longest they've been told that they're superior to everybody, that white people are better than everybody. So they grew up believing that. And then they passed that wicked lie down to their children and so on and so forth. So you have multiple generations of just brainwashed Edomites thinking that they're better than everybody. When in reality, Edomites are the lowest on the totem pole, so to speak. These Edomites need everybody else, but everyone else does not need them. You know, if these Edomites did have their own all so-called white country, they would just wipe each other out because they're a very violent uh, group of people. There would be a lot of incest going on, a lot of pedophilia going on, just a lot of wickedness because these Edomites are the wicked that the Lord created. So these Edomites, they can't do anything right. All they know is wickedness. And so many people have mentioned it before that these Edomites talk about how much they don't need any of the other races of people, like, the so-called black people and the Latinos and the so-called Asians. These Edomites will say that they don't need us. But yet, like everyone has said, if every other ethnicity or race of people decided to just get on any boat, any plane, any train, and just leave the country and let these Edomites have their all white country that they want so badly, they would not let us leave. They'd shut down the airports. They'd shut down, the you know, they'd shut down the train stations. They'd shut down everything so that we couldn't leave because at the end of the day, they know that by themselves, they can't do anything. By themselves, America would crumble because it's everybody else that makes America go round. All these Edomites do is destroy everything. They don't know how to build. They don't know how to fix anything. All they know how to do is corrupt and destroy. They need everybody else, every other ethnicity of people to stay around to uphold this place. If we all left and these Edomites were left to their own devices, this place would crumble. These Edomites want to, push this lie that they're the ones who built the country. And it's like, no, they didn't. They raped, robbed, and murdered, committed damn near genocide on people, and land theft to get the wherever they are, and then they used slaves to build up the country. So these Edomites, they're the face of it, but they didn't put in the work. That credit goes to the slaves and the immigrants and everybody else. And it's a beautiful thing to see that even on a carnal level, people are exposing these Edomites and letting them know, like, hey, you guys, you didn't do anything. All y'all did was, commit genocides and slavery and things like that. Like, y'all didn't contribute anything good. There's a reason why these Edomites get the better jobs. You know, like you'll see a lot of Edomites in various parts of construction and things like that. More better paying jobs than what they'll allow uh, any other race to be a part of. You don't really see too many Asians or too many so-called black people in construction. Because Edomites, they primarily want that all to themselves. You'll have a couple of Latinos up in there, but even there on the bottom, even their supervisor is an Edomite. So these Edomites, they always want to be on top. They always want to be in control. And we see, just take a look at the world, we see what happens when these Edomites are in control. Everything falls apart. And that's why the Lord is going to remove them out the way, because the Lord just used these Edomites to punish us, the Israelites, the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans primarily. He used, these Edomites, these so-called white people, to punish us because we went off. So we rightfully deserve to be punished. But he also is using these Edomites to show you what real wickedness looks like. Just wickedness and evil. The Lord is showing us through these Edomites how we're not supposed to be. See, even the scriptures say that things are divided against each other, two and two, one against another. That's why you have light and dark, up and down, forward and backwards, left and right, in and out, hot and cold. So the Lord has always been about division, but he's also always been about balance. And, getting back to the main point of this lesson, all of this division is ultimately going to lead to war. But after the war, there's going to be peace. And that's the balance. See, things are getting increasingly worse in the world because the end game is war. Ultimately, world war. But after that happens, and after the kingdom of heaven gets established and all these other nations get put into slavery under the Israelites, there's going to be peace in the world. And once again, things will have balanced themselves out. So, as bad as things are going to get, those of us of the hopeful elect who, are blessed with the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of these scriptures, we know that all of this violence, all of the chaos, and all the death that's about to take place is necessary for there to be peace in the end. We just have to continue to fear the Lord and stay prayed up and stay circumspect and stay locked into this truth. And let the Lord do what he's going to do. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up here. In closing, I want to give all the praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rakakudash, the Wadi Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, for putting the spirit on me to do this lesson. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Honors to all the brothers who are fervently pushing the word in sincerity and in faith. Shalom to all the sincere believers. Hope you all stay strong, stay safe, stay fervent, stay circumspect, stay prayed up, and Adawan Ratazah. Until next time, Shalom.